Welcome to another episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. I am your host, Kelli Melissa Reinhardt, and every single time I do this virtual, I have a box in my face. I don't know, planning. It's hard. But I am excited for this episode. My guest, I think, is going to share some nuggets today. But I think really how I want to set this up is we all have these beliefs, whether it is around ourselves, around others, around relationships, around finances, or other things in our life. And sometimes these beliefs really drive what we do as a human on a daily basis. So if you've been watching the Make Mental Health Matter show, watching or listening for a really long time, you know that I love to bring guests on who are experts in their field or they just have a story to share. But also, most of my guests have a story that led them into what they do today. And there are lots of people in this world that are really truly struggling. And sometimes that is rooted in our financial status. It also is rooted in our beliefs of how we treat ourselves, how we possibly treat others. And there's just so many things that go into those beliefs. And when we can start to identify these things in our brain or in our space or in our relationships, then we can often shift or change those things once we actually know that they're there. I know I say a lot of general things at the very beginning of these episodes, but there is a reason why, because it leads into what we're going to talk about today. So, without me ranting and raving for the whole entire time, I'm going to share a little bit of information about my guests, and then maybe you can figure out why I just went on that short little rant and rave. So, my guest for today, Jessica Weaver, she is a certified financial planner, certified divorce financial analyst, and the CEO of the Wealth Boutique. She's a 5-time best-selling author and the TV show host of Women Behind the Millions. So without further ado, let me bring up my guest. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey Kelly, thank you for having me on here. How are you?
Awesome. I am really excited to have this conversation. I know that not everybody is always excited to talk about finances, but I would love for you to share a little bit of your story first with the audience.
Ooh, it's similar. I just had a client in my office the other day, and we were talking about she's creating this donor advised fund, which allows her to contribute money into this account. And throughout the years down the road, she can then donate to a qualified charity, and she gets this tax benefit by doing it. I was just explaining to her like how amazing this is for somebody who came to me in credit card debt, not feeling financially secure at all, not knowing where to even begin, and having all of a sudden, after working so hard, money coming in the door from bonuses, stock incentives. And as I was saying to her, how proud I am of what she's accomplished, but how incredible that she's already thinking about giving back. I was in tears, and she's like, "This is why I work with you, because you get so excited, just your facial expressions alone, on doing this." And she was saying how many people have been poo-pooing her doing this and not wanting to give back. And they said, "You need to focus on you first." Well, yes, she did need to make sure she was financially secure, but I feel like a lot of people wait until, or they think they have to wait until this moment to give back. Where what I love about you, Kelly, you're just doing it. You're just giving back in such amazing ways and building community. And that's what our goal is, to help unite people around wealth and excite them again about money, and to go through money beliefs, stories, trauma from the past, rewrite those stories, give them a solid foundation to really grow and thrive with their money so they can get to a point like my client where now they're able to give back in such an impactful way.
Yeah. Amazing. And it is, I remember there were several mentors that they talked about having that charity fund, and I was like, what is that? About finances, and it's really like a separate bank account that you give back to. But yeah, you don't necessarily always have to have money, right? I mean, well, you don't have to have a ton of money to be able to give back, which I think is super cool.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't have to wait. I remember one advisor telling me, you do it before you can, or you think you can, because it comes back to you tenfold, sevenfold, hundredfold. I mean, that's what the Bible says it does. And it's true. We don't wait until, like, oh, I'm going to wait until I hit this salary or this much in assets. You give back, and you can give back with your time, with your money, your expertise. I have a client, and she retired, didn't have a ton of money to donate to her church, but she was very smart, and from her expertise with her career, she was able to write grants for the church and get these grants that were, $50,000, $60,000 a pop. That was huge impact for her to be able to do, and for her community.
Yeah, I'm like, interesting enough. I have just written for multiple grants in the last couple of months. One actually very like this last week, and so it's one of those talents that it's very beneficial to have somebody that actually knows what they're doing.
Not easy. It's
Yeah.
not easy to do that. That's
Yeah.
great.
So I'm curious, just more around like you and your story and like what kind of led you into wanting to do this work?
I was born into it. My father's been an advisor for over 40 years. So I remember stuffing envelopes when I was a little girl watching cartoons, working in his office throughout the summers, internships. In college, I started to get my securities license. So I knew this is what I wanted to do to help people. I always wanted to be a coach growing up. I thought it'd be with basketball. I love playing basketball, played through college. Um, so in a way, we are coaching, just in a different way. And after graduating college, I joined his firm at the same time as my brother, my older brother. We went through the Certified Financial Planning designation, which is kind of like getting your master's in finance. It's about a year and a half, 2 years, depending on how committed you are, we'll say, to doing it. Very early on, I knew I wanted to focus on women. I could see this huge disconnect. Women growing up traditionally aren't taught about money beyond maybe just the basics of household budgeting. And I saw they weren't comfortable asking questions. They weren't engaged a lot in the conversations. I even still hear it from my friends. I leave it to my husband. We just fall into these roles where one spouse is doing this and the other spouse is doing this. And how can we get women more engaged to feel confident, to feel they have a say in the financial decisions? Because I would get women coming to me years later after a horrible divorce or losing their spouse who passed away and in a financial mess. How do we proactively prevent that? Or even if it's not a mess, Kelly, but they're grieving. They just got divorced, which is like a death, or their spouse passed away, or I have clients, their spouse has severe MS or disabilities, and they can't really contribute anything to the mental load of running the household. And instead of being able to properly grieve, be there for their spouse, be there for themselves, they're figuring all this out with the finances. How can we get them in a better shape? And for multi-generations. Doing this research, we found, Kelly, that women leave $940,000 on the table over the life of their careers. Almost $1 million. About half of that money is loss of women leaving the workforce to become a caretaker. I've seen it taking care of parents, siblings, children, grandchildren, spouses as well. And that's about $430,000 that on average is left. And it usually hits women when they are in their 50s and 60s, kind of at their peak earnings of their career. So now they're walking away from probably stock options, bonuses, contributing to their 401k, getting that match, adding to Social Security, probably paying off their mortgage. And now all of that is put on pause to take care of somebody.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I know, so coming from the corporate world, that's where, I mean, I worked in the service industry. I've also worked in the corporate world, but that's really where I was before I jumped into my nonprofit full time. And knowing, I mean, the level of benefits that you have while you're in the corporate space, but then I know even for myself, I took a $90,000 pay cut just to do my nonprofit full time. And that was not something that I ever, ever imagined would be what I was going to do. But I knew that I was taking this leap of faith. And you look at the projected budgets and you're like, oh, it's going to be awesome. Well, we're great. And then realizing that it's a business and we have to run it as a business, and you really have to figure out all the business strategies and tools. And I think even 2021 was when I jumped into my nonprofit full time, and still to this day I haven't fully figured out the whole finance aspect of it, because like we were talking earlier, I mean, it takes a lot of time and talent to write for the grants and do all those things. And but yeah, I could only imagine, even women in the corporate world, we were making less money than the men that were doing the exact same job as we were, although I was in sales. So we could also get bonuses and work and make up the money that we weren't making on the hourly pay. So
Yes, exactly. And we're not comfortable talking about money. We're definitely not going to be comfortable speaking our worth, asking for bonuses and raises. We also tend to shy away from going for that promotion or that next title. Whereas men, they'll say, and they might not be fully qualified, but they're still going to go for it. They're more of those risk takers. So how can we get women to speak up more and advocate for themselves and for each other as well? Really having this sisterhood around wealth.
yeah, I love that. And I love that you focus on women, obviously. Being a woman, helping women is so important. And I couldn't even imagine. My dad taught me how to balance a checkbook when I was young. And then I kind of have, my dad was very money mindset, balanced checkbook, all the things. And then my mom is a little more frugal and, not not so organized, strict on that side, right? So I have like two different dynamics that I learned from as I grew up. And I think I kind of fell in between, but I've always been as independent as I possibly could, just knowing where my money, or trying at least to know where my money is. And but there's also those times that you're like, I'm gonna open, well, younger, right? I'm gonna open a bunch of credit cards and I'm gonna just use this money like it's, going out of style. And I think that's a whole nother level too, as the youth, especially in this generation, is we've had a lot of conversations about the value of cash or money in general and the understanding of that.
Yes, and you bring up a good point, Kelly, that we were brought up a certain way around money. And we put most of our impressions between the ages of, what is it, like 3 and 7, a very impressionable time of our lives. And our parents are probably opposites, or they might be similar, but there's still going to be differences on how they were brought up around money. So when you think about you and your spouse coming together, you're probably going to have differences when it comes to money. Whenever I go into teach kids, students about money, I always ask the question, whose parents fight about money? Because usually it's not spoken about in the household, but you can hear when they say, we didn't have money for that. Why did you spend all that money on it? Or I don't have enough money for that. Money doesn't grow on trees. Or you hear a lot of negative connotations around wealth. So how can we make it more positive and also respectful of, our parents did the best that they could with given what they were given. How can I educate myself so that I can stop generational cycles from continuing in a bad way? We usually see cycles of debt or not really just kind of staying this plateauing with income, because that's what we're used to in our world. That's what we're comfortable with as well. And then respecting, where did our spouse or partner come from with money? And that might be the reason that they're acting a certain way. This just came up, Kelly, with a dear friend of mine. She sent me, it was one of those late night texts She's like, that's it, I've had it. I go, no, what's going on? He's like, I need your help. So he manages the finances and he keeps them on a pretty strict budget. And I was asking a little bit more questions. Then I finally asked, how did you grow up with money? She's like, I did not grow up with money. The house, we almost foreclosed on the house. I was babysitting since was legally able to start babysitting. Worked my entire life, put myself through college. Whereas he went to private school. His parents had a good job, no student loans. She had student loans growing up. So as I'm going back and forth hearing the two different stories, I said to her, I bet you want to be able to enjoy your money a little bit because you've worked so hard for it all these years, and you want to be able to have something tangible to show for it. She's like, yes. Whereas he feels like he's being responsible by keeping everybody in that control, in these lines, this budget, and whatnot. So like, come to him from this perspective of, this is how I grew up. I've worked really hard my entire life. I want to be able to enjoy my money. And I also, it goes to her, said to her, you need to be part of the financial conversations, though. Mm-hmm. You can't have it all on him and then ask for more money. You need to be a participant in these conversations. So it really went back to both of them being at odds because they come from different versions of wealth and different mindsets and stories, beliefs, and him having the sole responsibility. That's a lot. It's a big burden to put on one spouse. She needs to be engaged. I'd give him a little bit of space. And it was a game changer for both of them.
That's amazing. And I mean, getting getting people to have that conversation, right? Especially in a relationship. I had a question that's popping into my head, but we have to go to our first quick sponsored break, and then once we get back, I will ask that question. So we'll be right back after this.
Have you ever felt completely alone?
Like your life doesn't matter.
One person dies due to suicide every 40 seconds.
You are not alone. Call the National Suicide Lifeline at 988.
Hope and recovery is possible.
1 in 8 people globally live with a mental disorder.
That's why empowering minds saves lives.
We need your help.
With only $19 a month, you help us save lives through mental health and suicide prevention education.
Scan the QR code or go to makementalhealthmatter.org to sign up as a warrior for mental health today.
Hi everyone, I am Sinet from Brador. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. Please join me in my Power Hour every Sunday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV. Mwah!
Back. If you happen to be just tuning in, whether you're watching or listening to the Make Mental Health Matter show, thank you so much. Make sure you go back and listen to the beginning of this. Before we went to the break, we were talking about really like relationships, how sometimes in marriages there is one of the partners that is the dominant for finances, especially male, female, and the men tend to be the ones that have control or budget, all the things, right? And how do we bring women into the conversation of finances specifically? And so that's really what Jessica helps with as with finances. But the question that was popping into my head, so for the people, and I say this kind of from experience, there's a budget guy, he just does budgets, and he's not like a financial planner or anything of that nature, but he helps with budgeting. And he created this amazing spreadsheet for me, and that was really like when I originally jumped into my nonprofit and I wasn't bringing in any any income at that point. And he's like, well, we gotta like build up the income. And so seeing all the numbers, right? And having it in front of your face of like, here, this is what we need to work on. This is what you should put money towards, right? And helping people get to a place that they are feeling secure in their finances. But my question that was popping up is what do you say to like your clients that come in that are maybe really, really struggling? And it was something that, again, going back to that belief or how they grew up, that money just like wasn't something that they talked about. Because I know that that is one of the barriers that I hear most often is that they just don't know, nor will they ever want to ask those questions. So, in those instances, what have you helped, or like, what are some tools that we can give some people?
Ooh, good question. I have a new couple coming in this week, and she's pregnant. And they said, we are in debt. We overextended ourselves with this new house. Budgets, as we know, everything costs more money than what we put on paper. And they're scared, right? There's this underlying fear. We're adding more expenses, and we can't afford our current lifestyle. So what do we do from it? And I feel everyone has been through this. Even as a business owner, I went through this when I started the Wealth Boutique, right? There are times when I didn't pay myself so I could keep the payroll going for everybody else on the team. And the biggest thing is scared money does not make more money. So we need to see getting out of that sense of fear into, what is working for us? What do we have coming in? And we got to get ourselves a system. I have 5 money systems that we start to integrate with people right away. And it's slow. It's a slow progression. So it's never going to be an overnight fix. I hate those like get rich quick kind of schemes. It's not. Even when people take money out of an account to pay off debt, that's a Band-Aid. We're not fixing the underlying reason of why are we still in debt. Because they're going to come back to me, Kelly, in a few months, few years, and they're going to be back in debt. So one of the first systems that we work on is our cash flow security system. We got to track where is the money coming in and where is it going out. So we see what are the holes. Money leaves our world so fast these days between Venmo, Amazon, Uber Eats, right? All of a sudden it's gone. I remember working with a couple and it was their kids. They're like, our kids spent $60,000 this year between Amazon and Uber Eats. So documenting, and there are apps that can help this, but it's not the same as manually entering it in and going through it. It's kind of like journal work. For us, it's painful. It's like stepping on the scale, especially in December after the holidays. We don't want to do it, but we need our starting point. So then we can see our holes. Once we start to make decisions, right, everything is a choice that you're spending money on. What are the choices that we can stop so we can prioritize what is important to you? What are those necessities? And we say, what wiggle room do we have? Even if it's 1%. And that then falls into our stable money saver, where we will get you saving 1% a month, a paycheck, right? It's going to be probably going without a lunch. I've had clients, they stopped eating out for lunch and brought their lunch in. They stopped smoking cigarettes because they saw how much money they were spending on this. So now healthier choices are being made, not just financially, but for themselves too. And then we meet every few weeks, every few months, and we say, can we double it to 2%? So instead of trying to save, let's say 10%, and now I have no money in my bank account, now I'm falling back into that scarcity mode. And what happens? I'm going to move that 10% back in, and now I feel like I failed. I'd rather start really small and really slow, but consistency is going to be the key. So then how can we double it to 2%, and then 3, 4, and before we know it, all of a sudden you're saving 10, 20% of your income. But it didn't feel painful because we did it slowly. But within a year, 1 to 2 years, we get people saving about 20% of their income. Another big piece is you don't want to put all of your extra money towards paying off the debt. That's the number one way to stay in debt. Because what happens? Next time you need something, your refrigerator goes, you need new car tires, you're falling back on the credit cards. You need to create a reserve bucket while we are also paying off the debt for it. And we chunk it into phases. So phase one, let's pay off the debt and build up 3 months of reserves. Now the debt's paid off or partially paid off, let's add in a retirement bucket. Now that all the debt's paid off and we have 6 months reserve, we can add more money to retirement and maybe a new house purchase or whatever that in between goal is. So we try to create what are our financial goals? Let's assign a bucket of money to each one. How much are we adding to it and how are we investing it? And those are kind of the 3 steps that we take that get people on average socking away that 20% of their income.
I love that. And I mean, that's what I love. Like, whenever I talk about self-care, things of that nature, right? Like, it's making those simple or easy, small steps. It doesn't have to be like the grandiose going to the spa for days, right? Like, it can be those little tiny steps that, because if I think about debt, right? It's like everybody's calling you, you're trying to like make better with all of the companies, right? And then they're like, well, we need this much from you. And you're like, well, I don't have that much. So good luck. And then you kind of put it on the back burner because it feels so heavy because now you're paying however many and then it's everything that you have. So now you're like, well, how do I eat? Because now I'm trying to pay back all my debt when I really need that money to be able to support my family or stay in my house or whatever it might be, right? And so I think that's good to take a little bit. And I remember one of my other mentors, he talked a lot about random acts of kindness, and it's giving of whether it is small, there was like buying a coffee for somebody behind you or sticking dollars in diaper boxes. That was actually, I put like dollars in diaper boxes, which was kind of fun, right? But it helps generate what I call your brain's happy juices, all the endorphins, the serotonin, the dopamine, which I think ultimately brings in that like money energy, that it's more of a cycle. It's not that I have to hold on to it all the time. And so that's what I'm hearing from you, is that we can create these accounts that are, or pockets of money that we're putting into for the specific things. And then there's also that saving portion, which is really the important portion.
Yes, exactly. And I talk about money being energy, right? Money is an energetic exchange. Energy likes to be in motion too. So a lot of times people, they'll just hoard money in a bank account. Like, that's not doing you any good. We need to keep it fluid and moving for you instead of it sitting there doing nothing and actually losing money because inflation is through the roof. It's losing purchasing power. Let's get it invested. Let's have a plan in place. Let's give it a purpose in your life, in a home. Otherwise, I call them homeless dollars, Kelly. They leave our home. We spend them. Right? But you brought up another point. When people are in that scarcity mode with money, a lot of times they will start to avoid it. Right? They put their head in the sand. It's too painful to look at it. And that's one of the first steps, is we have to peel back the layers and see, what are we working with? What are the interest rates? What are the balances? Where are you spending our money? And there might be some tough choices to make. If 80% of your income is going to your house, we got to make a change there, because it's not going to be sustainable. And you don't want to be constantly in this, I need to make more money in order to afford my lifestyle. We want you to feel grounded with your money and not in this game of chasing after it, because what we chase, it's not a good attraction. Law of attraction, right? Yeah, we got to be where, we're very secure, we're feeling abundant, we're feeling flowing, and we got to see, what are the numbers? What are we working with? And the numbers don't lie. As painful as they might be, they don't lie, but you have help and guidance along the way, so it shouldn't feel as painful. And usually you feel better after doing it, because you finally have the full picture, you finally have a plan in place, and now we can start working the plan and executing it.
I love that. And organization is so good for your mental health too.
Good point, Kelly. Good point. Yes. We had a client, and she had probably $70,000 in debt outside of like her mortgage that was on top of it for it. In 2 years, she paid it all off, and she's doubled her net worth. It went from like 350 to over 700,000 in 2 years. In 2 years. So she came and she was in these cycles where she realized I'll be okay and I'll get myself to a good spot. And then I'll feel like, oh, my credit cards are paid off. I have all this extra money in my balances that I can use. And then she'd go on these expensive trips. And she'd have them pretty regularly. So it's also, why are we needing these extra expensive trips? And how can we feel good about ourselves without having to spend all that money on those trips?
Yeah, because any travel, just even getting outside of your little area is good for your mental health too.
That's true. Yeah, you don't have to spend $10,000.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna go to our last quick sponsor break, but once we get back, I do also kind of want to shift and talk a little bit about the show that you do. And then so we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
1,917 people die daily from suicide globally.
I lost my middle sister, Carrie, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
How does Kelli, host of the Make Mental Health Matter show, impact lives?
Number 1. Awareness.
My story, however, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction. And because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here. And if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
2. Conversation.
I'm curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community, it is very hush-hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like, you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli, because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show, and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question, because it is different and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be, because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Number 3. Education.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message, encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
If you happen to be tuning in to the Make Mental Health Matter show, you missed the whole beginning, so make sure you go back. My guest Jessica and I are really chatting around finances and bringing women into the conversation of finances and making sure that we are empowering women specifically to know where their numbers are at, and especially in marriages when it male female and when the men tend to be the financial person, because you also brought up something earlier about divorce. And actually, so funny enough, at our last community event, we were having this conversation. I don't know how we got onto it, but I think it was because there was a woman there who had just lost her husband. Unfortunately, he had just passed, and she's like, I'm trying to figure out all of these things, right? Especially the finances. And she's like, I really hope that I can join more of the community events, just because I don't know like who to talk to or what to do and all those. And then another woman, she was talking about, yeah, I just got divorced. And so it was really, I don't know, it tends to, whenever we have the community events, it's like the perfect people are right there at that moment. But so they started having a conversation as far as finances and what that looks like, and thinking about cars and the home and all the things that you don't necessarily think about when you're in the relationships. And then once you're out, or somebody unfortunately passes away, like, what do you do? So I thought that you bringing up that point of how you empower women to start to know before it gets to that place. And the other thought that had popped up into my head, so I know there are a lot of really great nuggets that you talked about along the way. And when somebody works with you, more specifically, you have this framework that you give them that ultimately opens up all these spaces that we may not want to talk about yet. But it is really important for us to have those conversations and see where the holes are and figure out what is actually happening with our finances versus just ignoring them or shoving them down, which I often talk about as far as mental health goes. But I know that you have lots of stories, even in your own personal life, centered around mental health. But I also know that you have this amazing show that you do here on E360 TV. So I want to pivot just a smidget, but wanted to do the recap and talk about like anything like personal that you want to share, and then also a little bit about your show too.
Sure. Well, you're talking about divorce and thinking of your show, Make Mental Health Matter. My grandmother, this is on my mother's side, she had her own TV show back in the 70s. It was Claire and Coco. It was her and her standard poodle. And then it became a talk show. So it was a children's show, and then became a women's talk show. She even had Sonny and Cher on her show. Really amazing stuff. But for my mom growing up, it was very difficult. My grandmother was bipolar. And back then, she took speed during the week and sleeping pills during the weekend to make her schedule work. And raising 3 kids. My grandparents got divorced when my mom was only 4 years old. And Kelli, back then, they put my mom on the stand and asked her in front of both parents, who do you want to live with? Terrifying for a young child. And she ended up living with both of them, but it was difficult living with my grandmother. She tried to commit suicide about 5 times throughout those years, and not having support resources like what you are creating, which is amazing, just knowing, what my mother went through, and feeling so alone herself, not feeling loved at all. My grandmother went on to marry an alcoholic. He was a functioning alcoholic. But in the same note, and she did give up drinking for him. They were married about 35 years. Now, part of why I do so much work with women, especially on the divorce side, is because 35 years into the marriage, she found out he had a whole nother life, few lives, 2 mistresses that he was supporting financially. He had taken her, he was a very sneaky, sleazy lawyer. He took her properties and put them in his name and took out mortgages out on them. And that's how he was also funding these lifestyles for his mistresses and himself. So I say this because even very successful corporate women get mixed up, and these things happen to them. And that's why it's so important to know your money, know what's happening with it, and to have help, have advocates, have a team that backs you up. They were able to they went through the divorce. My grandma was able to keep her one property, and she went on to live financially secure and fine for it. But that was a whole mess of things happening right there. And part of why I am an advocate for women, especially going through traumas and financial abuse, which is becoming a legal crime in a lot of states. It is here in New Jersey. It happens where there is one who is manipulating, controlling, stealing from the other spouse. And that's where we are here to help in whatever way we can for it too.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, watching that, right, as you were young and seeing all the things, it absolutely makes sense why you do what you do now, being able to help women. And I mean, I'm sounds like both your grandma and your mom are strong people that unfortunately maybe had to figure it out the hard way and learn.
Yes. So leading into my TV show, Women Behind the Millions, that's part of it. It's that behind the scenes look at what does it take to, one, get to wealth. And wealth status is different for everybody. It doesn't mean you have to have $10 million, $1 million. It's really personal and intimate. One of the first things that we're going to do is, what do you want to feel when you think of wealth? And a lot of times for women, it's security. Not feeling forced into financial decisions like I have to sell my house now that I am a widow or I'm divorced, but being able to have options, feeling stable, that I have enough money coming in to cover it and maybe give back. I think that's a big part of feeling wealthy, is that I'm able to be generous with my money and give back and be able to prioritize these things that are important to my heart. And then who do you have on your team to help you get to that place and to stay there and to pass it down from generation to generation? So from everything from attorneys, accountants, wealth advisors like myself, we look at the health side. Stress, money is stressful. Stress can make an impact on our physical well-being. How is that getting amplified in our life? How can we, without our health, money means nothing, in my opinion, if we can't enjoy it. So how can we go into that stage of our life the healthiest we've ever been? Looking at the mind, body, soul, the emotions around money, even the spiritual side of money that women are really connecting with more than ever. Going into those internal sources, so our beliefs, our feelings, emotions around money, trauma around money, right? How do we heal that? And then we can look at the external world from investments, stocks, bonds, accounts, taxes. Then we can add those pieces to it. But let's focus on the inside first, and then we can complement it.
I love that. And it's all like the behind the scenes, right? Like all those things that really matter, because it's not, and I'm learning this also, like wealth, right? Like what does wealth mean to you? What does money mean to you? What, right? Like all these different layers, and how do you keep that flow or that energy? And I've had somebody say it, like money movement is what they call it, which I love that phrase, is how do you keep your money moving so that it's working with you and for you in a way, but creating, I always do the cycle, because I think about money as like this cycle, and that's even when I go the other way, it's like the receiving part, because for me as a nonprofit founder, like receiving was something that I had a really, really hard time with, interestingly enough. But that's what I've had to get really comfortable with, because I've always been that, as I was talking about earlier with my parents, like I've been that independent person. Like I've been the person that, the caregiver, or the one that actually funds a good chunk, or it's always been 50-50. And at this place in my life, it's shifted a lot, which is so weird for me. So I've had to learn how to receive, and not just fully always give. And so I think that's part of the cycle that we have to be aware of, and how you said resolving that trauma. And I love that your show shows the behind the scenes of all of that.
Yes, to feel safe in receiving. And a lot of times we aren't open, we aren't receptive to miracles happening around us, or even acknowledging them. Like, what was that first feeling when you got your very first donation, Kelli? It must have been like, whoa.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, okay, cool. Right? Yeah, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Exactly. And like, I would encourage every woman listening, watching this too. And this is one of the exercises we do, especially with women in transition. What are your underlying goals, desires? And to not be scared, like to allow yourself to want these things. It's okay to want these things. It's safe to want them. because we're so focused on everybody else around us, we are not even thinking about what is it that I want in this life and how can we make it happen. Not like, oh, it's never gonna happen. Like, no, it's gonna happen. Let's find a way to make it happen. So taking that moment, what would real wealth feel like to you? What are the goals that this would help you do? It's just a tool, right? It's just a way to get you from point A to point B. And what is that underlying feeling? And let's make it as positive as we can.
Yeah, I love, and I know, like talking in mental health, right? Like our safety comes from our gut. And so if your gut is not well, or your mind and your body are not really fully connected, sometimes when we have gut challenges, that leads to like identity or safety challenges. And so I always like to talk about how our mind, our heart, and our gut are all connected. And when we can really like get in there and figure out kind of what's going on body wise, it may also help our mental state. And I that's where that receive comes into, because giving is very much from our heart, sometimes from our mind. But I love that you talk about safety in finances, and then just connecting it back into the mental health space. That's where our gut is, where that lives.
Ooh, that's beautiful. It's very true. A lot of times we feel nervous even receiving extra money. Like, what if I blow it? What if this is a one time I'm going to get this lump sum of money? And it's already blown before it even comes into your world, right? It is safe to receive. It's safe to receive.
Yeah. Well, I love just the whole conversation, and I know not everybody, I love having the hard conversations that not everybody likes to talk about. But I think that finances and understanding, like, where does it come from, or whether it's something in our childhood that we learned, or patterns that continue to happen throughout our life. There's also with people and help, like people like yourself, that can get us out of those patterns that we consistently have. And there are ways to see it from the backside of understanding, like, I'm not the only person that goes through this. There's lots of us out there. But ultimately we can change those patterns, those beliefs. And it really starts with opening up that space of being honest with yourself and with others, which I think is a great point that you have made throughout this.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. It is amazing what you are doing. The
Thank
community and the awareness, incredible. Thank you for being such an advocate.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I want you to share, because we're coming close-ish to our time, but any final thoughts that are coming up, and then also how can people find you?
Yes, I would say it does not matter what age, stage of life you are in, there is time. That's another thing. We're scarcity with money. We're usually our scarcity also with our time. I don't have enough time. I'm trying to play catch up. No, we don't need to play catch up. You're exactly where you are for a reason, and we can work with whatever you are at. It does not matter. You can find myself and all of our amazing advisors at thewealthboutique.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at pinkfixmymoney, because in my world everything is pink. So pinkfixmymoney, where we give you our show, Women Behind the Millions. You can find out all of that information and all of our daily money tips and strategies that we share.
Amazing. And I'm going to type it in here and make sure that I spelled it right. So it's thewealthboutique.com.
Yes.
Amazing. And I'm going to put that up here. But for those of you that are listening, so it is the THE Wealth, WEALTH, boutique, BOUTIQUE.com. Did I spell that right?
You did. You nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go to thewealthboutique.com. And then last final question, because I do know that everything in your world is pink. Tell me a little bit about that.
So PinkFix started as a hashtag when my first book, Strong Woman, Stronger Assets, came out. I had pink pants on, and we rebranded my blog. which is on jessicaweaver.com and everything. So it was kind of like when you get your pink fix for the day, means you're getting your daily dose of what should I do with my money. And it's giving your money the attention it deserves each day. So it's kind of like this reminder, did you get your pink fix today? Did you get your pink fix today? And then it has brought it into, now it's its own production company, Pink Fix Productions, where we publish women's stories. We have books, anthology books, TV shows, my own show. My 4th book on limitless wealth will be coming out in 2026. And so it started as a hashtag, and now it is a full-blown productions company.
I love that. That's so awesome. Yes. And if you want to check out Jessica's show, again, it does air on E360 TV. So make sure that you go check that out. Find out what other women are saying. And then again, multiple books come out of her show, which is super awesome. My hope is that I can come on and we can continue this adventure, which I know is going to happen. So this was so amazing, such a great conversation, and thank you for being open and transparent and willing to share your expertise in this space of wealth. So thank you so much for being an amazing guest.
Thank you, Kelly, so much for being on. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for listening and watching.
Yay! All right, y'all, that was another amazing episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. I know that finances can be something that maybe we don't really want to talk about, or it feels really uncomfortable, which I totally understand, but it is really important. It is something, and it is a conversation that we should be having, whether it is with our spouse, with ourselves, or with others, and then finding those pockets that you can start to move your money into, right? And taking those small little steps, which increase into larger steps. I know that I've always heard that the value of a penny is so much more than what we give it credit for. And if we're just even saving a penny a day, it compounds and multiplies, and you're like, how does that even work? But it does. So I'm not the expert in finances, but that's why I bring people like Jessica on the show. So I hope that this was helpful for you. No matter what you do, make sure you come back next week. I go live every single Monday at 5 p.m. on E360 TV, or you can listen on Dream Vision 7 Radio at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. Mountain Time. My brain's trying to go faster than my mouth can talk. I will see y'all next week.